All right. So we got a lot of our initial reports back on hero augments, and to the surprise of no one, I would say they were divisive, right? There are clearly some players who like them, and clearly some players who don't. And the ones who don't, the question is, why don't they? We have to understand why they don't. And the reality is, we have a lot of players that I'm going to describe as, less engaged, but are really interested in certain things. They don't want to play what they hit. They want to log in and have fun and enjoy something they've seen. So a good example of this is, I want you to imagine somebody's watching Soju, and they see Soju play a really cool duelist comp, and he gets a first with it, and they're like, wow, that looks really fun. I want to log on and try to play a duelist comp. So they log in, and they get the carousel, they get a bow, they get another bow, so they're happy, or they even get a glove, they've got their last whisper. And the first hero augment comes up, and it gives you Lulu, Galio, Lux. And you're like, huh. And yeah, challenger players maybe can do something clever where they use like the Galio to transition whatever, but the reality is a lot of players don't want to sit there and play, 4 or 5 games in a row before they can even try the cool thing they wanted to try. They want to log on and try. And as long as it's not optimal to force, that's fine. But we do have to acknowledge that there's a large group of our players that want to log in and try something and not have the game put this hard blocker. And a lot of players perceive hero augments as this hard block. They're like, I have a Galio hero augment, whatever. So that's not fair. So we acknowledge this, and we're like, okay, how do we adjust this? Because obviously we can't just remake the entire system. And so the extreme version of this is, what if we said you could literally pick your hero augment, right? That's the extreme. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. And obviously, we can't have you type in, but that's kind of what we're going for, right? It's okay, what if you could just log in and pick your hero augment? Now, at least with the variation of when does it appear, we've got that, right? It's so some games you're going to get a 1-cost hero augment, some games you're going to get a 4-cost hero augment, so there's at least variation game to game. But for that player that really wants to play a duelist, cool, there's a bunch of different ways to play that duelist comp. Can we get a better song that isn't fiddle screaming in my... Anyway, so you can, have some way to play duelist. Now, we're not at the point where we're I log on and I want to try exactly get paid. That's not going to work, right? You still have to be some adaptability. So, but we kind of want you to do whatever. So, increasing the number of rerolls was the obvious, easy solution that gets the game in quick. So, now the question is, why 4 rerolls, right? Everyone asks, why 4 rerolls? So let's assume everything is possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Infinite all the way to 0. How many rerolls? Well, first off, the 5 costs. If you have the 5-cost hero rerolls, so it's all 5, 5, 5, there are a total of 16 augments, okay? Which means we can't show you more than 5 shops. Which means our max is 4. We can't go above 4. Any more than that, and a 5-5-5 would break. So we know our max is 4, and our minimum is 1. Okay? Now, when testing it, we tried... Because my first instinct, which was wrong, but my first instinct was, hey, the first augments on 3-2 and 4-2 are tailored, but after that, they're random. And I put that in game, and I tried it out, and the very first thing that happened was, okay, I want to play Duelist again. I'll keep using Duelist as the example. And the first augment was cool, it's a, Zed, Soraka, whatever, Sejuani. And I'm like, oh, I want the other one. And I started pressing Reroll, and what would happen is you'd get, Talia, and Samira and things that had nothing to do with your comp, and it felt like crap. It absolutely felt really bad. So that was pretty clearly not okay, right? We don't want you like pressing reroll 4 times to see a bunch of random stuff that makes no sense for your comp. And the reality is most players, especially at 4-2, are not going to transition. No one's going to transition their duelist comp into a full AP comp on 4-2. That's just not happening. So why would we show you a Talia augment on 4-2? So that meant we went with full tailored. So 3-2 and 4-2 is now full tailored. So let's say it was 1 augment reroll. The problem then with full tailored is the difference between hitting and not hitting. And we see this on live, right? If your opponent gets exactly the Zed support augment they're looking for, and you get Sejuani, you're like, I'm at a disadvantage. Feels bad. So we were like, we really, really want you to hit. Like, the whole point is we want you to hit your hero augment. So we went with the max. The whole point of 4 is we want you to hit. We want you to go, yep, this is the augment I want to go for. And that way, when we talk about balance, the difference is, you know, everyone gets to hit. And that's a good thing, right? Balance is good. Now, what are the obvious side effects of this? Augment balance is going to have to be good, right? The second there's one augment that's like wildly overpowered, let's say, for example, Misfortune, Make It Rain on 3-2, right? If we get a 3-2 hero augment and Misfortune, Make It Rain was in the state it was in, then guess what? You'd see 8 Make It Rains, right? So there's going to have to be a big emphasis on balance. But even that example I just said where 8 players have Make It Rain, okay, at least the game's fair. It's better than 2 players getting Make It Rain and, you know, the other 6 just lose. So at least knowledge can matter. And so it can hit competitive things here. It'll be knowledge. But so we're going to have a big emphasis on augment balance moving forward. And it is going to be our responsibility to make sure that there are a lot of viable choices. So you're going to see, like, next patch, for example, there aren't a ton of champ and trait changes, but there's a ton of augment balance, and there will be a bunch more augment balance. So with 4 rerolls, what we're basically saying is, on 2-1, which is the hardest, it's the least popular hero augment, right? The 2-1 hero augment, you get 15 choices. If there's not something you like in 15 choices, that's on you. You need to be more willing to open up, but it's a lot better than 6. And then in 3-2 and 4-2, we're basically saying, get the hero augment for your comp. And that's the goal, and that's why we went with 4. Now, could you nickel and dime over 3 versus 4? Yeah, sure. You could nickel and dime me over 3 versus 4. But again, if our goal is to make sure you get what you want, higher is better here. So that's why we went with 4. And yes, it sounds like a lot. But again, the goal is 3-2 and 4-2. I'm basically saying, pick your hero augment. So there you go. That's the explanation. Again, it's us listening to the feedback off of the hero augment system. It's trying to make it more fun for people who don't want to play 20 games before they get to try the thing they want. So, if you use 4 rerolls at 2-1, do you still have 1 reroll for the rest of the augments? Yes. The 4 rerolls are completely separate. You should never... That's the other thing. We don't want you feeling bad about this. We talked about, again, versions where, like, you would get a gold or an XP for not using them. Nope. We want you to be okay with using all 4 rerolls and not feeling like anything was rough. So that's kind of the goal. So there you go. There's the explanation. You can clip that now when everyone asks. There you go. Why is the product decision to release this type of change mid-season as opposed to taking this feedback and implementing it next season or mid-set? Oh, we have a viewer lobby? Okay. So that's a great question. We did talk about this at mid-set, and it actually was our first reaction. Our first reaction was to do this at mid-set. But we talked about, like, what TFT is as a game, and we like being the product in the Riot portfolio and really in the game's portfolio that's willing to listen to player feedback take risks and act quickly. And so what this does, by doing it sooner, we get the learnings much sooner, we get the player feedback sooner, and then we can, let's say it doesn't work. Let's say we're just wrong and 4 hero augment rerolls are terrible. Then what you can do is make a bigger change at the mid set, because we have other stuff we know we're doing in the mid set. But yeah, rather than wait an extra month